The aircraft was gone. The ocean was silent, and the most important evidence remained hidden nearly 4,000 meters below the surface. The answer existed, but reaching it would become one of the most difficult investigations in aviation history. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. On the evening of May 31st, 2009, Air France Flight 447 departed Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, bound for Paris. The aircraft was an Airbus A330, one of the most advanced passenger jets in service at the time. The flight carried 216 passengers and 12 crew members from dozens of countries. It was a routine transatlantic journey that thousands of travelers completed every year. Nothing about the departure suggested that this flight would soon become the focus of worldwide attention. The aircraft climbed normally and settled into its planned route across the Atlantic Ocean. Inside the cabin, passengers relaxed, watched movies, read books, or tried to sleep through the overnight journey. The flight crew monitored weather systems ahead while maintaining communication with air traffic controllers. Everything appeared routine. The Airbus A330 had an excellent safety record, and there was little reason for concern as the aircraft continued eastward into the darkness above the ocean. As Flight 447 approached the intertropical convergence zone, the crew encountered an area known for powerful storms and unstable weather. Pilots crossing the Atlantic regularly navigated around these systems, and modern aircraft were designed to handle challenging conditions. Weather radar helped crews identify areas of heavy activity ahead. Although the route required careful attention, there was nothing unusual about encountering storms in this region. Such situations were part of normal long-distance operations. Shortly after midnight Coordinated Universal Time, the aircraft continued through an area of developing weather. Around that time, several automated maintenance messages began transmitting from the aircraft to Air France. These messages indicated that multiple onboard systems were reporting unusual conditions. However, the information was fragmented and difficult to interpret. At that moment, nobody on the ground understood exactly what was happening. The aircraft was still thousands of miles from its destination. When Flight 447 failed to make its scheduled contact with the air traffic control, concern began to grow. Controllers attempted to establish communication but received no response. Initially, there was uncertainty. Aircraft occasionally experienced communication issues over remote oceanic regions. Yet as additional time passed without contact, the situation became increasingly serious. Airlines, aviation authorities, and search coordinators soon realized that something unexpected had occurred far out over the Atlantic Ocean. The search operation began across a vast area of open water. Aircraft and ships from several countries joined the effort, scanning thousands of square miles of ocean. The challenge was immense. Investigators did not know the exact location of the aircraft, and the Atlantic provided few clues. Search teams worked around the clock, hoping to find evidence that could explain the disappearance. Every passing day made the task more difficult as currents continued moving debris across the sea. Several days into the search, recovery teams began finding debris scattered across the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. Aircraft components, personal belongings, and other recovered items confirmed that Flight 447 had come down far from land. While this discovery provided the first clear indication of what had happened, many critical questions remained unanswered. Investigators still had no way of determining exactly why the aircraft was lost, and the most important pieces of evidence, the flight recorders, had not yet been located. Without those devices, understanding the final moments of the flight would be extremely challenging. The black boxes contained crucial information. One recorded technical data from the aircraft systems, while the other preserved cockpit conversations and sounds. Together they could reveal what happened during the flight's final minutes. Unfortunately, the Atlantic Ocean presented a major obstacle. The search area included regions nearly 4,000 meters deep. Locating relatively small devices on the seabed under such conditions would require advanced technology and extraordinary patience. Investigators examined every available clue. Weather reports, maintenance records, automated messages, and radar information were analyzed in detail. Experts developed numerous theories about what might have happened. Some focused on weather conditions, while others examined technical systems aboard the aircraft. Yet without the flight recorders, no explanation could be confirmed. The loss of Flight 447 was rapidly becoming one of the most complex aviation investigations in modern history. Months turned into years as search efforts continued. Specialized vessels equipped with sonar systems repeatedly surveyed sections of the ocean floor. Teams hoped to detect signals from the missing flight recorders or identify debris fields hidden beneath the water. The operation became one of the most challenging underwater searches ever attempted. Although many believed the answers were somewhere below, the Atlantic seemed determined to keep its secrets hidden from the world. By 2011, investigators launched another major search mission using improved mapping technology and more accurate analysis of previous data. Rather than searching vast sections of ocean randomly, teams focused on specific areas where evidence suggested the aircraft might be located. The operation required careful planning and international cooperation. Every new survey increased the chances of success, but the Atlantic remained an enormous and challenging environment that revealed its secrets only reluctantly. The breakthrough finally came in April 2011. Search equipment identified a debris field on the ocean floor that matched the missing aircraft. After nearly 2 years of uncertainty, investigators had located the remains of Flight 447. The discovery marked a turning point in the investigation. For the first time, experts could examine physical evidence from the aircraft itself. More importantly, the location offered hope that the missing flight recorders might still be nearby. Remotely operated underwater vehicles were deployed to explore the site. Working thousands of meters below the surface, these robotic systems transmitted images back to researchers aboard support vessels. The footage revealed aircraft components resting on the seabed in remarkable condition. Although the environment was harsh and difficult to access, investigators could now begin documenting evidence directly. Years of searching had finally led them to the place where the mystery could be solved. Soon afterward, search teams located both flight recorders. It was one of the most important moments of the entire investigation. Despite spending nearly 2 years underwater, the devices were successfully recovered and transported for analysis. Aviation experts around the world understood the significance of the discovery. The recorders contained information from the aircraft's final moments, and for the first time, investigators had the opportunity to reconstruct exactly what had occurred during the flight. Specialists carefully extracted and processed the data stored within the recorders. Every detail was examined with extraordinary attention. The information revealed the sequence of events that unfolded during the final stage of the flight. Rather than a single dramatic failure, investigators discovered a complex chain of circumstances involving weather conditions, aircraft systems, and human decision-making. Understanding that sequence would become the key to explaining the loss of Flight 447. Investigators later determined that the aircraft encountered conditions that affected the pitot tubes, sensors responsible for measuring airspeed and supplying important information to both pilots and onboard systems. As the data from those sensors became inconsistent, certain automated flight functions were no longer able to operate normally. Although situations involving unreliable airspeed information were uncommon, pilots are trained to manage them through established procedures and by carefully monitoring other available flight instruments. Understanding how these events unfolded became a key part of the investigation. As the situation developed, the flight crew faced a series of rapidly changing indications. In the darkness over the Atlantic and surrounded by weather systems, they needed to interpret complex information while managing the aircraft's flight path. Investigators later concluded that confusion about the aircraft's condition played a significant role. What appeared to be one problem gradually evolved into a much more challenging situation, as critical decisions were made during a short period of time. The flight recorder data showed that the aircraft eventually entered an aerodynamic condition known as a stall. In simple terms, the wings were no longer producing the lift required for normal flight. Recovering from such a situation depends on recognizing the condition quickly and applying the correct control inputs. Investigators determined that the crew did not fully understand the aircraft's state during the event, making recovery far more difficult than it otherwise might have been. One of the most surprising aspects of the investigation was that the aircraft remained structurally intact for much of the sequence. The Airbus A330 continued responding to pilot inputs, and many systems remained operational. The challenge was not the loss of the aircraft itself, but understanding its actual flight condition. This distinction became a major focus of the final report and influenced discussions throughout the global aviation community for years afterward. As investigators reviewed more evidence, a clearer understanding of the flight gradually emerged. They found that no single problem was responsible for what happened. Instead, several different factors developed within a short period and combined in ways that were difficult to recognize at the time. In aviation, major accidents are often the result of multiple events rather than one specific cause. The story of Flight 447 became an important example of how several small issues can come together and create a much larger problem. The investigation attracted worldwide attention because Flight 447 involved a modern aircraft operating on a routine commercial route. Many people assumed that advanced technology had eliminated most uncertainty from air travel. The findings demonstrated that even sophisticated systems depend on accurate information and effective human responses. Rather than focusing on a single mistake, investigators examined how technology, procedures, training, and environmental conditions interacted during a rapidly developing situation. Aviation authorities, airlines, and manufacturers carefully reviewed the investigation's conclusions. The goal was not simply to understand what had happened, but also to reduce the likelihood of similar events in the future. Safety improvements often emerge from detailed analysis of challenging situations. Flight 447 became an important case study used by pilots, instructors, and aviation organizations around the world as they evaluated procedures related to high-altitude flight and unreliable instrument indications. Following the investigation, airlines and training organizations took a closer look at how pilots handle unexpected situations in the cockpit. Flight simulators were updated to include additional scenarios based on the events of Flight 447, giving crews more opportunities to practice challenging conditions that are rarely experienced during everyday operations. These improvements helped pilots build familiarity with complex situations and became part of ongoing efforts to enhance aviation safety throughout the industry. Aircraft manufacturers also reviewed technical aspects related to airspeed measurement systems. While the investigation identified several contributing factors, improving equipment reliability remained an important objective. Various modifications and updates were introduced across fleets operating similar aircraft. Such changes reflected a long-standing principle within aviation. Every major investigation provides an opportunity to learn and improve. The industry continuously adapts as new information becomes available through research and experience. The search for answers had required extraordinary persistence. For nearly 2 years, investigators worked without access to the most important evidence. Many mysteries throughout history remain unsolved because critical information is never recovered. Flight 447 could easily have become one of those cases. Instead, advances in underwater search technology and careful analysis eventually led researchers to the aircraft's final resting place deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Recovering evidence from such depths represented an engineering achievement in its own right. Specialized vessels, advanced sonar systems, and remotely operated vehicles all played essential roles. Conditions on the ocean floor were unlike anything encountered in ordinary investigations. Every operation required precision and patience. The successful recovery of the flight recorders demonstrated how modern technology can help solve mysteries that once might have remained unanswered forever. Beyond the technical details, Flight 447 also highlighted the immense complexity of modern aviation. A commercial airliner is the result of countless systems working together simultaneously. Pilots, computers, sensors, weather information, and operational procedures all contribute to safe flight. Most of the time, these elements function seamlessly. The investigation showed how disruptions affecting several parts of that system can create challenges that are difficult to recognize and manage in real time. Once the final report was released, aviation professionals around the world spent considerable time reviewing its conclusions. The findings were discussed by pilots, instructors, safety specialists, and training organizations, all seeking to better understand the lessons that emerged from the investigation. Rather than being remembered as the story of a single flight, Flight 447 became an important learning example that helped improve understanding of decision-making and aircraft operations. Its impact continued to influence aviation long after the investigation had ended. Years after the investigation concluded, Flight 447 continued to be referenced in aviation training and safety discussions. The story remains relevant because it demonstrates how quickly conditions can change and how important it is to understand the information available in the cockpit. Many of the improvements introduced after the investigation were designed to help pilots respond more effectively when faced with unexpected circumstances during flight. What began as the disappearance of a single aircraft ultimately transformed into one of the most influential aviation investigations of the modern era. The search spanned years, covered thousands of miles of ocean, and required some of the most advanced recovery efforts ever attempted. Through determination, technology, and international cooperation, investigators gradually reconstructed a sequence of events that had once seemed impossible to understand. For the families of those aboard Flight 447, the recovery of evidence provided answers that had been missing for years. While no investigation can change the past, understanding what happened helped bring clarity to a situation that had long been defined by uncertainty. The discovery of the aircraft and the successful analysis of the flight recorders transformed a mystery into a documented sequence of events, allowing investigators to explain what had once seemed impossible to understand. The Atlantic Ocean had concealed the aircraft beneath nearly 4,000 meters of water, making the search one of the most demanding recovery operations ever conducted. Yet the investigation demonstrated that patience and determination can overcome extraordinary challenges. Every piece of evidence, from debris on the surface to data stored within the flight recorders, contributed to a larger picture that emerged slowly over time through careful analysis and cooperation. Today, Flight 447 is remembered not only for the mystery that surrounded its disappearance, but also for the lessons that followed. Aviation safety advances through continuous learning, and each investigation adds to a growing body of knowledge. The information gathered from this case influenced training programs, operational procedures, and technical improvements that continue to benefit pilots and passengers throughout the world many years after the flight. Few aviation investigations have combined so many elements: a modern aircraft, a remote ocean environment, a prolonged search, and a mystery that lasted for years. The eventual discovery of the wreckage and flight recorders demonstrated the value of persistence in the face of uncertainty. What initially appeared to be an unsolvable puzzle became one of the most thoroughly studied events in modern aviation history, providing insights that continue to be examined today. Air France Flight 447 began as an ordinary overnight flight across the Atlantic Ocean. What followed became one of the most challenging investigations in modern aviation. For nearly 2 years, the ocean concealed the evidence needed to understand what had happened. When investigators finally recovered that information, they were able to explain the events that led to the loss of the aircraft. The case provided valuable lessons for the aviation industry, and its impact continues to be reflected in training, procedures, and safety improvements around the world today.